Guys, I really don't know what to say. A week ago, I was happy. I was optimistic. I was excited about the future of a company that I'd invested a lot of my time and money in. And now I just don't know what to think. TNA were doing the right thing. They were pushing the young talent, creating new main eventers. They had Booker T, a veteran who didn't want to play ball, who didn't want to put over the young stars, and rather than continue to put up with his bullcrap, they got rid of him. TNA was going in the right direction, developing the young stars that were going to be their future, getting rid of the people who wanted to stop that from happening. And then earlier this week, they announced the signing of a man who was infamous for holding people back and not helping young talent, who was infamous for only being out for himself, who was infamous for not putting other people over unless it somehow benefits him. You know, I went through all this crap back in the day with WCW. Guys, I gotta be honest. Hogan and Bischoff and TNA, this scares the living hell out of me. Will Hogan get publicity for TNA? Yeah. Will he bring an increase in ratings? Probably. But at what cost? Earlier this year, the Main Event Mafia storyline got TNA their highest ratings ever. But at what cost? All the young talent was buried in the process. A lot of them still haven't recovered. And now you're paying the price for that because those guys have been so damaged that they can't draw like they should be able to. And the Hogan thing could turn out just like that. Because I got news for you, TNA. Hulk Hogan is not the least bit interested in helping you grow as a company. Hulk Hogan is only interested in helping Hulk Hogan. How about that Larry King interview, huh? How about the Howard Stern interview? He had two great opportunities to really talk up the TNA brand, the TNA product, the TNA stars. But, as it turns out, he really didn't mention TNA much at all. But he sure spent an awful lot of time talking about himself, didn't he? Better get used to that, TNA. You got rid of one overpaid egomaniac, and you gained an even bigger overpaid egomaniac. Now, the Bischoff thing I'm not quite as worried about, provided that he's not involved backstage. And supposedly his production company is going to be partnering with TNA, helping them to score like new TV deals, developing new programming and stuff like that. So, as long as Bischoff is only involved in the business end of things, then this could potentially work out. But if he starts to involve himself backstage, or God forbid in creative, then there's no telling what kind of shitstorm TNA could be bringing down on themselves. But as far as all that goes, and bottom line is, most of this is just pure speculation right now. I mean, there just isn't a lot of concrete information available at the moment. Hopefully, by the time I do my next video, we'll have a better idea of how the landscape is going to be changing. Until then, all I can just do is cross my fingers and hope for the best. Okay, there was a lot of stuff that I liked about Impact this week, and there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like too. Just like last week, the formatting of the show was much improved. They weren't trying to cram way too much stuff in for a change, and just like in general, their time was managed a lot better than what they usually do. But yeah, the matches are still too short, but it didn't feel like they were in a mad rush to get through everything. And it definitely makes the show a lot better when they don't try to cover so much material all at once. Better placement of commercial breaks, that's another big one. I don't know what happened backstage, but it seems like in just the last 2 weeks alone, the production team has suddenly gotten a lot smarter about where to place commercial breaks. I mean, time was, you could basically predict exactly when commercials would happen. I mean, they'd start a match, they'd wrestle for, a minute or 2 minutes, and then you'd have a bunch of people doing dives to the outside, one after another, and then, boom, commercials. It pretty much happened that way every time. But it seems like they've changed their whole philosophy on that. But, I mean, for the last 2 weeks, I'm pretty sure every match has been commercial free. I mean, they're getting into the habit of going to commercials before the matches instead of during the matches, and that's so much better because the TV matches are so short as it is. that when you interrupt them with commercials, all you're doing is pissing people off. On the creative end of things, something I really like is the fact that they're actually building a one-on-one feud for the X Division title between two guys that are not AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, or Samoa Joe, which we really haven't seen very much of in recent times. I mean, it seems like the X Division is just constantly represented in these big multi-man matches now. And sure, I mean, sure, those are fun to watch, but they really don't mean as much. I mean, I want more one-on-one matches. I want more of Daniels and Joe and No Surrender and Amazing Red Homicide at Turning Point. And I like how I like how they're building the feud too. And it's not just about two guys having a bunch of big crazy spots and crazy matches. I mean, they're actually getting to cut promos and stuff, and that's usually not the case with the X Division. I mean, they tend to get overlooked when it comes to things like that. Samoa Joe. I really like what they did with Samoa Joe this week. How he's being really cool and calculating and playing mind games, trying to turn AJ and Daniels against each other. I like this version of Samoa Joe a lot better than the big hot-headed guy who just screams at everything. And probably my favorite part of the show this week was the storyline of the veterans getting phased out. I mean, it's been pretty subtle so far. I mean, right now it's mainly just Rhino coming off as paranoid and Team 3D not really buying into it, but at the same time, they're maybe starting to wonder about a few things. And then there was the finish of the tag match with the Motor City Machine Guns, which is probably going to lead to them starting to ask questions. And then you see a guy like Desmond Wolfe showing up, and immediately he gets into the main event with Kurt Angle, and the veterans are starting to think that, you know, maybe there's somebody behind the scenes who's pulling the strings for the young guys who wants the veterans out of here. And I love this because after the main event, Mafia ran roughshod over all the young talent and trying to take over the company for the last year. It makes perfect sense that the people in management would want to take measures to ensure that something like that never ever happens again. So this is the perfect way to follow up the end of the main event Mafia storyline, because now it's like a complete role reversal with the veterans on the defensive and the young talent taking over and the young guys on the rise. And that's great stuff. Things I did not like this week. AJ Styles, TNA World Heavyweight Champion, has had maybe 4 minutes of screen time in the last 2 weeks. What's going on here? Where is he? Look, I like the storyline they're doing with him, but he should be a bigger part of the show, a much bigger part of the show. Bottom line. The beautiful people. You're still pushing the beautiful people. Why? What possible reason could you have? Look, I get that they're a ratings draw. I understand that. But guess what? They suck. Okay, they're over, but they cannot back it up in the ring. You got 3 women in this faction. Madison Rayne is the only one of them that can wrestle worth a crap, and she's average at best. Velvet Sky is lousy, and Lacey Von Erich is absolutely horrendous. And yet, for some reason, they get pushed over and over and over again, while the women who should be at the top of the card, like Alyssa and Hamada, are doing squat. What is the point? Without Angelina, this faction is dead. Break them up, get Madison a better tag team partner, make Velvet a valet or a manager or something, and get Lacey off my TV screen and send her back to wrestling school before she injures someone or herself. The Scott Steiner-Bobby Lashley feud. This is just stupid. Alright, if you're Bobby Lashley, and a guy like Scott Steiner hits on your wife, are you then going to continue bringing your wife to the show so he can hit on her again? No. Okay, you're going to want to keep her away from this guy. And seriously, Scott Steiner needs to stop hitting on women young enough to be his daughter and find a freak his own age. He's starting to come off like a dirty old man here. Also, you really have to question the logic of giving away Kurt Angle and Desmond Wolfe's first match on free TV. And at least it was short. I mean, I know I bitch about the short matches constantly, but this match really should have been short. I mean, you don't want to give away too much of that before the pay-per-view. And I don't know why the hell they made it a street fight though. I mean, that was a regular wrestling match. I mean, they never took advantage of the street fight rules, so why call it a street fight? I don't know. Of course, the whole show was pretty much leading up to the end with the Hogan segment. Like I said, I'm really nervous about this. I got a lot of mixed feelings about Hogan and Bischoff in general. I mean, the segment itself came off well. It looked like a big deal. It made the company look like a big deal. And this is getting TNA a lot of mainstream attention in the wrestling media. But at the same point, it's Hulk Hogan. And with him and with his history and knowing what we know about him, I'm just so skeptical that this is going to go anywhere good. So that's a big to be continued. So stay tuned, and hopefully I'll be able to get into it more next week when we have more information. Later.